Hi, greetings. It's me, Dr. Paul Gerhardt, and today I want to talk about trait theory. Have you ever wondered what makes a great leader great? Well, a lot of sociologists and psychologists and management OD practitioners, there's been lots of research done by people like that who really wanted to pinpoint what makes a leader effective. And that's what trait theory really is all about. We've been studying traits for a long, long time as humans, and one of the most interesting bodies of literature really has to do with leadership trait theory. So, long time ago, the theory was that people were just born great, and that's the great person theory, essentially. And then over time, as we started to peel the skins of the onion off, so to speak, we really started recognizing that some commonalities seemed to appear to be in place, and people started to look for answers to the very simple question, what differentiates a leader from a non-leader? So let's talk about how trait theory works and some of the history of trait theory. What is trait theory, essentially? Well, it's a systematic attempt to really study leadership. I mean, it just makes good sense to have the right questions and then put pieces into place, systems to kind of evaluate how you can find that answer. And that's what we do in academia, of course. In the early 1900s, we really tried to focus on what made a great man. A leader, and looking for innate qualities and characteristics that the greatest social, political, and military leaders had. If they were being effective leaders, there probably was some reason that they were so effective. Were there any commonalities? As you look from the 1940s, 1950s, 1970s, 80s, 90s, and then in this current decade, there were specific shifts in trait perspectives. In the 1940s, Dr. Stogdill looked into intelligence, alertness, insight, responsibility, initiative, persistence, self-confidence, sociability. Professor Mann looked into intelligence, masculinity, adjustment, dominance, extroversion, and even conservatism. One of the most famous researchers for trait theory is Stogdill. And he looked at things like achievement and persistence and insight and initiative and self-confidence, responsibility, cooperativeness, tolerance, influence, and sociability. I mean, these were traits that just seemed to be common among some of the most effective leaders. And even in the 1980s, the theorists like Lord, De Vader, and Alliger looked into, pinning it down to three. Intelligence, masculinity, and dominance really seemed to be the effective leadership traits at that time. And then a little closer to modern times, Kirkpatrick and Locke really focused on characteristics that seem to be very, very common, like drive, motivation, integrity, confidence, cognitive abilities, task, and knowledge. And in more recent times, Sakharov, Kemp, and Bader, and I know I'm giving you a lot of names and I'm reading them from my notes, because it just kind of goes to show that we've gone through decades where it appears that common characteristics were really needed to be effective in these decades. Cognitive abilities, things were changing very quickly. Extroversion, being able to express ideas at the right time with the right people, and conscientiousness, doing the right thing for the right times. And then emotional stability. We watch leaders who fly off the handle too often, or put people down, or are too judgmental. Those are things that we know affects a leader's effectiveness. But we also know that the best leaders, since change is the only constant, especially these days as we emerge into a global marketplace, change is happening in organizations more and more, and in order to adapt appropriately to change, and because nobody can know everything, there has to be openness to change. Agreeableness, being able to settle on things, motivation, you've got to be able to get things done and be able to motivate people to get things done. And then social intelligence, really being able to understand what's going on in your groups and among stakeholders. Self-monitoring, emotional intelligence, and then problem solving. So these days a great leader needs to wear many hats, and they need to have the ability to make the right decisions at the right time and bring in the right people. And so being a leader really needs to be able to, you need to be able to understand what is needed, and then put the leader with the right qualities. Or if you are a leader and you don't have all the right qualities, you've got to be able to get the right training to know what you don't know and be able to do what you need to do in order to keep your team or your organization moving forward. Some of the major leadership traits that we know today that help an organization move forward or a team move forward is leaders need to be smart. This is about verbal, perceptual, reasoning capabilities. These days we look at organizations like Apple, which was nearly bankrupt, and then they had to bring back Steve Jobs, and Steve Jobs understood the industry well enough and knew what needed to be done, and was very, very directed at transforming Apple as an organization. So you have to respect people who really transform an organization, and Steve Jobs certainly did that. Again, great leaders need to be self-confident, so people have confidence in them in order to take the right action. Nobody wants to work for an organization that feels like a ship that is sinking. And so in order to do that, you've got to have leaders that possess self-confidence and help empower people to make good decisions and continue to do the work that they do to move the organization forward. And because leadership is about direction, they have to have the right determination to get things done when they need to be done. And that really means you can't be a quitter. You need to have determination, initiative, to start things, and persistence and drive to get things done. And so these are really great traits of very successful leaders that you cannot deny. Today we know that integrity is about doing the right thing at the right time, and being honest and being trustworthy. Your character is always being evaluated by your peers, so you cannot compromise on integrity. You can't compromise on any character trait like honesty, for instance, that's related to integrity. So great leaders need to earn the respect of their followers. They've got to give trust and be trustworthy. We'll talk later about that in other videos. Sociability. People need to feel like they have a relationship with people. And so the really good leaders are constantly doing things to build and maintain their relationships and expand relationships with new networks. And that's called sociability. You've got to be likable. One of my favorite bodies of literature really has to do with the 5-factor personality leadership model. And essentially, these 5 characteristics of personality and leadership are neuroticism, the tendency to be depressed, anxious, insecure, vulnerable, and hostile. If you recognize that you have any of those qualities, you need to be able to manage those qualities effectively. Extroversion. As a leader, you have to be out front, and so you have to be sociable and assertive and always positive in your energy. And so if you're thinking about wanting to be an effective leader and you're not so sociable or you're not so assertive, practice doing it. You practice, practice, practice. You don't think about tying your shoes anymore as an adult, most of us anyway. But because you've practiced it so many times. So it's the same way with any leadership quality. If you know that there's leadership traits that get successful outcomes from it, you've got to practice it until it becomes a natural part of you. And that's what a habit is, by the way. So a habit is something that you continually do over and over again, and positive habits help you get positive results. Agreeableness. You need to learn that it's not my way or the highway all the time. Sometimes it's about bringing other people into your circle to help you make the best decisions. And so in order to gain trust of other people, you need to be accepting. You need to learn to conform. You have to trust. You got to give trust to earn trust. And then you also need to be nurturing, help other people be successful. And that's agreeableness. And I think one of the most important qualities of a leader is to be conscientious. You've got to be organized. You have to be thorough. You got to do the right thing. You got to be dependable. If you commit to doing something for somebody or with somebody, you need to follow through. And you need to be decisive. You've got to make good decisions. Leadership is all about making good decisions for the people that are counting on you. So neuroticism, extroversion, openness, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. These are the big 5 leadership model traits. So where are you weak on any of these areas? What is really going to be needed to help you get the best results if you were to just focus on those 5 traits? One of the other bodies of literature that's a personal favorite of mine, and I really believe that 85 to 90% of your success really comes from being emotionally intelligent. And I love doing emotional intelligent workshops because you have to, what gets measured gets improved, and so you kind of have to have a baseline of where you are. And most people that I work with find that they're not as emotionally intelligent as they would like to be. And if you really want to be effective, you really need to be able to adapt appropriately. We need other people to help us get to where we need to be, to help us accomplish goals. We cannot do everything. We need to be able to manage our relationships in a mature, productive way. And so being emotionally intelligent recognizes the fact that we have the ability to push people away because we react to situations in an improper way. And when we see people who are needing something, maybe they're distressed or depressed or anxious, we need to be able to identify how they are feeling and help them manage their emotions in an appropriate way. And that's emotional intelligence. It's not what happens to us that matters. Even the most successful people have the biggest challenges. Things don't always go right for any of us, and that's part of the human experience. But what we do with what happens to us, that's what really matters. So being emotionally intelligent is recognizing I'm feeling this way. Well, emotions are an indicator that you have an association with something that has happened. So choose your actions. So take a minute to stop, think about the situation, and what can you do to help create a win-win outcome for the people that you're interacting with. So that essentially is what emotional intelligence is all about. Apply the right actions when you're feeling an emotion. Identify what your emotion is. Are you being accurate? Are you really mad? Or are you is there another emotion associated with it? Sometimes you may find someone going and opening up the refrigerator because they feel that they're lacking something, and they think that food is going to help fill them with what they're lacking. But maybe it's loneliness that they're there, and you're not going to find a friend in the refrigerator, obviously. So really as an adult, we really need to be able to accurately identify what our emotion is, figure out why we feel the way that we do, and make sure that we're associating the right information with how we're feeling in order for us to be able to do the right actions to get the best results. There are some tools out there that will help you manage your emotions and measure it through measurements. You know, there's the MSCEIT, and it helps you measure mental abilities, perception, understanding, and then essentially how you manage emotions. Dr. Goleman from Harvard University is probably the most famous out of all the emotional intelligence researchers and a great public speaker. Very, very smart, but he's done a really good job of writing books to help us understand his core, what he thinks is core for emotional intelligence: self-awareness, confidence, regulation, conscientiousness, and motivation. I'll say those again: self-awareness, confidence, self-regulation, conscientiousness, and motivation. So I mean, if you really can focus on developing each of those core abilities, you probably can accomplish anything, you know, because you'll be able to have the right emotional intelligence to enroll the right people the right way to help you accomplish your goals, and you create your own successes and failures. It's not someone else's fault that things didn't happen in most cases. It's what you've chosen to do that affects outcomes. So that's really important to think about. And then the Shankman and Allen model, EQ as an awareness of three aspects: context, self, and then others. So being aware of the tools that are available and then using them properly, these are the things that can help you develop the skills that are needed to help you have what you need to be an effective leader. So what we do know is that people aren't just born leaders. You know, sometimes people are born into families where they get to see role models who really are effective leaders, and that is very, very true. But what we do know is that most people, if they're open to change and they have the intelligence to recognize that they need to change, and the ability to learn new things and the motivation to want to learn new things, you can be an effective leader. So you really got to want to change. You could turn off my videos at any time because you don't want to learn from me, and that's absolutely fine. My goal is to help you be the very best that you can be, and I'm grateful that you've taken your valuable time to watch my videos. But if you don't choose to use the lessons that I share with you, you're not going to be able to make the change that will help you get different results. So the approach really is all about focus on using each of the different trait approaches. Really being able to identify your strengths and the strengths of each of the different theories that are out there, being aware of the criticisms about these theories and then managing them well, and then just simply applying the concepts as needed. So you don't always know what you don't know. I ask you, as you watch these videos, to have an open mind. Watch them over and over again and consider them with an open mind and an open heart. You know, if you want to be an effective leader, get the education that you need. Use the tools. You can't be lazy when it comes to self-development. You're the only one who can choose to continue to grow and to choose to let go of old ideas that may not be serving you as well. Remember, whatever has happened to you in your past, it really is about you and your decisions for what's been presented to you. You can transform yourself into be the most effective, well-respected leader in your organization and grow your career and grow your stability and job security in your organization by becoming a linchpin, becoming indispensable because you make the best decisions because you know how. And trait theory really is about being able to identify what is needed, what traits are needed, and then be able to develop the skills and the qualities of people who have those traits in order to become the best you can to help your organization or your team become as effective as possible. So I like to think of the question, how can you apply trait theory in an organization? Well, if you recognize the needs of the stakeholders, the team, be able to identify what their needs are, and really be able to create masterful interview questions, job applications, and job descriptions that help people be able to self-identify those traits and then be able to show interviewers or people involved in decision-making processes that you really have those leadership qualities that they're looking for. That's what helps make a match. One of the biggest downfalls to organizations is they hire leaders or employees that don't have the right stuff. They haven't asked the right questions the right way and really be able to send out, the job descriptions in the right places in order to bring in the right people. And so when you're recruiting people, you really have to be clear on what you need, what traits of the people are needed. And are you putting your net out to the right areas that are going to have the best qualified people? And then are you able to evaluate, ask the right questions to be able to hear that they've got the right qualities and the right assessments to help really measure, to what ability do those people have those qualities. That's trait theory. That's trait theory in application as far as I'm concerned. So I know I've given you a lot to think about today, but really be asking yourself, what is needed for my ideal job? What is needed for the people that I'm working for? And how can I make sure that I have the skills to know what I need to know and the skills to be able to do what needs to be done in order to get the job done? That's trait theory. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your valuable time. I appreciate you watching the video. I'm Dr. Paul Gerhardt. Have a great day, because only you get to choose how you feel about it.